We're on again, and it's the Tuesday Chew for the first time in how long?
Oh, at least 2 years. At least 2 years.
At least 2 years, and it's the first ever live one.
Yeah,
So,
and you're about to find out why we never did them live before. Firstly, because you're going to find out how much stuff we used to cut out, most of which was probably swearing. So this comes with a health warning this morning.
Yeah, it's unlikely we're not going to offend at least somebody here. I've seen the playlist. Someone is going to be offended today, so bear that in mind. So why should people hang around, Matthew? Why should people hang around today for our little chat? What time are we finishing? What time are we looking at finishing?
This is going to be a half an hour thing. We're going to be finishing probably 10:45. We should really be doing this at 22 minutes past 10 tonight, actually, shouldn't we? Because it's all the twos today, isn't it?
It is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday, the 22th of the tooth, 22.
Yes, absolutely. All the twos are for the Tuesday too. Very good. Yeah, I'm liking it. So yeah, basically, why should anybody hang around today? Because we're going to be talking about probably the biggest challenge that's faced by most businesses, if not all businesses, at some stage. Certainly, if you're a growing business or you've got any aspirations to grow, it's a challenge that you face, which is really how to get capacity into your business so that you can scale. And that really comes from, well, a number of different areas. But I mean, if you want to get capacity in your business, you're going to be looking at probably three things. I'm going to sort of flip into my little whiteboard thing here, just to be a bit funky and show that I've got a little whiteboard. Look at that.
Oh, look at that. Who'd have thought absolutely.
It? So if you want capacity, so let's say capacity. And by the way, apologies for my terrible writing. It looks like a small child is scribbling. But basically, you can try and automate stuff. So you automate to basically mean that you don't need to recruit. If anything's a replicable process, if anything's replicable, you just automate it. Alternatively, you can also build processes and systems so that your people are actually doing things more efficiently. They're doing things more effectively. You're basically using the minimum necessary time, effort, resource, energy to actually do things. And you can also hire, taking on people. And actually, interestingly, the thing that almost becomes people's default, a lot of business owners, they look to hire before they look at anything else. Hiring becomes almost like the default strategy for how do I get more capacity into my business? How do I scale? And it's like, well, the first thing I'm going to need is I'm going to need some bums on seats. You know, and sometimes that means that what they're doing is they're hiring somebody, but they're hiring them into a system that's either ill-defined or maybe there's things that they're hiring for where actually you could automate the damn thing. Which is a lot cheaper, by the way. And usually, if there's an app for that, the app doesn't usually answer back. Very rarely goes off sick. Not saying that not all systems are perfect, but they don't usually go off sick.
Before we go into the depths of this, this is all good stuff. What are the outcomes at the end of this? Why should people hang around to the end? Let's get into that because before we start digging in the weeds.
Yeah, good point. I mean, you know me, I get overexcited
very easily.
I think the key thing here is that we want to be able to offer something to actually help with this. And we don't have all the answers. Nobody does. But we're going to be talking a little bit later on about a 2-hour seminar that we're going to do free of charge with limited spaces, because with these things, we like to make them very interactive so you get real benefit out of it. And if you want to know a little bit more about that a little bit later on, then hang around because we'll be talking about how you can get access to that. We do have some other resources as well, which we also very much like to put in front of people because it's all about giving something back to the local economy.
So I mean, what we're going to be talking about today is really some of the tripwires that we can fall over when bringing new people into the organisation. Of course, Matthew, I mean, new people are quite cheap, and you can just hire them. They don't cost the business anything, right?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, you're tripping over talent, aren't you, all the time?
So we're doing good. We're on time. And we haven't sworn yet. So one of the things we were talking about earlier, because we have actually prepared this, although it probably doesn't look like it. When people are looking, going back to your nice little picture there of process and automate, It's not unusual, and certainly in my experience, the sort of filling up the stock or filling up the stock of the business with people instead of improving the way the business works is actually more normal than you would anticipate. But what does that mean if we're hiring? What sort of things do people find when they're hiring?
What sorts of things do they find when they're hiring? Well, I mean, I guess it really depends on how they're hiring. But I mean, in my experience, and certainly in my earlier roles, where maybe I was self-sabotaging unintentionally, I have to say I have got my fair share, maybe more than my fair share of scar tissue from bad hires. Thank you. I'm not glad I'm not alone on that one. but
No. I've had some great people and some dogs with fleas.
Man, I've hired some people who are more flea than dog. But yeah, no, it's just you get people who are, they're almost like you. Afterwards, you think, how the heck did I ever take this person on? You've seen them interview, and they interviewed like they were an absolute superstar. Just the best person you've ever come across. They're articulate, their stories are on point, that everything's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a real outcome. You can see that they're driven, they're intelligent, they're smart. And then the person hits the payroll and you're thinking, I don't even recognize you. Who the hell are you? Why did I take you on? They're nothing like they were at interview.
Who did I hire? I thought I was getting James Bond, and I ended up with Johnny English.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, they look ostensibly the same on the poster, but they're not the same dude, right?
Oh, dear me. So what we quite often have, I mean, when people hire, it's to backfill a desperate situation. I need people. And they go out to some of the great recruiters in the world, and they say, "I need people," and the recruiters get a half-baked requirement of what they want. I mean, I guess if there was any recruiters on here, they would be able to say that. Quite often someone said, I just need this sort of job, send me someone. And then the recruiter doesn't really know what they're looking for. And then they get wronged by the employer saying, well, what's this crap you've just thrown over the wall at me? And so we get a desperate management situation. We need to replace someone who's left, or all of a sudden there's an uptick in business and we need to get someone in. They're desperate. And then they sit in front of people who are desperate for a role. And we have a desperate manager and a desperate candidate. And then they get all shocked and bruised and wounded that the result actually turns out to be quite desperate.
Yeah.
And then what they do is they blame the recruiter for sending a load of rubbish over here. Tell me more about that, Matthew.
Well, we did warn you there might be a little bit of swearing. I'm going to try and keep it as PG-13 as possible, but in terms of not safe for work, this is half term and mindful. So if there's young ears in the background, please just block their ears for the next 10 seconds as I say shit in, shit out. Unfortunately, if you've got a bad brief, you're going to get bad results. And that's the bottom line with this kind of stuff. So we're starting from the wrong point of view, aren't we? We're requiring to fill a hole. And the problem is when you wait until you've got a gap in your business that you desperately need to fill, then that's the wrong time to be recruiting. The analogy I always use is a bit like when you go to the supermarket, when you're starving hungry and you don't take a list with you. Look at your trolley before you get to the checkout. And what have you filled your trolley with? It's a load of empty calories. It's a load of crap that you're going to fill yourself up on. And recruiting in desperation is a bit like that. You kind of fill yourself up, but it's not good what you're filling yourself up with, right? And you're not filling your organization with what you actually need in order to form good nutrition for your organization. So it's how do you set yourself up to recruit well? And building a list is probably not a bad place to start, just as you do when you go to the supermarket.
Yeah, building a list, and I think it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon that people hire for today's situation or their past situation, rather than taking what sort of person do we need to help us scale, grow, fit into the business that we want, rather than the business that we've we've got now, which is always an ongoing challenge. And we all say we want A players, we want the best people, right? We need the best people, but they're not out there. They are not out there. Matthew.
No, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because at the moment, there's lots of talk about this being a candidates market, that basically people have got the choice of where to go and sort of apply where to hitch their wagon to, if you like. What employer they want to go and work for, and finding A players in that market, surely that's even more difficult. But it's always difficult to find A players, because any business that is worth its salt will hold on to its A players. They will nurture their A players. They will love them. They will keep them and look after them, because those A players are the accelerators for their business. They're the people who really make the biggest difference to their turnover, to their productivity, to their efficiency, because they're A players. They're the ones who really are the difference that makes the difference. So what does that look like? I mean, how is it that you attract people of that nature? Because, they don't leave the organizations they're in, do they?
Quite often with these guys, status quo, not the band for you older people, not moving is our biggest competitor. Someone who wants to hire the A players, not moving and staying where they are. So we've got to up our game as far as attracting these A players. And the thing is, I've been in an organization that was full of A players, and the good news was A players were queuing out the door to join this group. And it's not all about money. What is it about?
Well, for an I think that's an important question, because if you understand why A players are even attracted to work somewhere, and you also understand why they leave, then you also got a very good idea how to recruit them and how to actually hold on to them. So why does an A player actually go to work somewhere? And you're right, it's not always about money. Money tends to follow. It tends to be a reward that comes on the back of their performance, but it's not always the key incentive. The intrinsic motivators, the things that actually drive anybody to do anything, usually are not actually about money. People are not coin operated. At least not usually. Money's a means to an end rather than an end in itself. And that end can be about security, it can be about freedom, but very often for A players, it's about, in the old Maslow's hierarchy of needs world, self-actualization, mastery of what they do, being recognized as being the masters, and being recognized as doing good and meaningful work that really adds value to something, to be standing up and being counted. And that's a great point. A players love accountability. They love it because it's an opportunity to succeed, but it's also an opportunity to learn when they fail, because we all recognize that failure is a necessary part of anything that we do. Show me somebody who hasn't failed, I'll show you somebody who hasn't tried. I
think that's right. I mean, when we were talking before we started here, you came out with a great line, which I made a note of here, is that in order to be an employer of choice for A players, you've got to make it such that A players want to come to you to do their best work.
Yeah.
And we have to allow for that when we're in the recruiting phase, and make that quite obvious. This is not, I've got a job, do you want it? This is, how do you want to self-actualize? When you look at your best work, what you could do, what does that look like? And how could that dovetail in with our longer term vision for this business, scalability, growth, success, and actually the rewards for you? Why do you come to work? And I think people forget this sometimes, that people go to work for their own reasons, not your reasons. No one goes to work for you, Matthew, so you can buy another Ferrari, right? Just see what I did there?
Just for the point of clarity here, I don't have a Ferrari. Frankly, I'm not sure that I can afford the garage bills. But there you go.
Yeah, I couldn't even afford a hubcap, but there we go.
Hubcap.
That's showing me age again. Oh man, do they have hubcaps? I don't know.
Possibly they have alloys, but let's move on.
Okay. So we have to make our organization. We have to plan. A players go and join A player companies. So as a leader, you've got to look like an A player. You've got to give the impression, you've got to show that you're an A player. And how do you show to an A player candidate that you are an A player and they're going to get involved with an A player company?
Absolutely, and these are the sorts of things you have to do when you're setting yourself up to succeed in recruiting. It's about advertising yourself in some ways as being a challenging but rewarding place to work, and we're not just talking financially rewarding, although that very often does come along with it as well. It's rewarding in all of the ways that we've just been talking about. I think an interesting thing for me is looking at the other side of it. Is why would an A player ever leave a company? Because that's equally important, is to understand that, if we're looking for the psychology of the A player so that we can find these two-headed unicorns, why would they ever actually leave a company?
And that's really important. And when they do leave a company, typically it's for the two reasons, isn't it? It's their boss is a moron. I've done that. I'm sure people have left me for the same reason. The boss is a moron, or they're surrounded by people who the culture is C player, mediocrity, and they're surrounded by a whole bunch of C players where the best C player somehow thinks they're an A player. Matthew, what do you think? What do you think about that one?
Well, I mean, the C player doesn't start to think that he or she is an A player until actually all the A players have left. And you're right. The quickest way to get rid of A players as an organization is to tolerate too many C players, because then all you're left with is the C players, and that pool of mediocre talent. Is talent the right word? No, it's not.
Sometimes.
But,
no.
This pool of mediocrity. That the least bad of them thinks that they're an A player, and in this PC world, I'm not going to use the phrase "it's a tallest dwarf competition," but let's be honest, there have been times in my life. Yes, I am. I just did. But there have been times in my life when I've sort of looked at my own payroll and gone, you know what, actually, this is kind of a donkey sanctuary. Maybe actually this looks a little bit like Disney's rejects for the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and mainly the Seven Dwarfs. We've got Grumpy definitely there. I can see Sleepy. There's Dozy, and then over there's Moni, and there's Whiny.
Needy. There's Needy who's over there.
Needy. I've employed Needy.
Needy. And then there's Blamey, isn't there? It's not me. It's them. Oh, yeah. It's them. It's not me. Never me. It's them. But when they happen to accidentally do something half decent, it's because they're a genius.
Oh,
they're an A player. But when it's not so good, it's them. There's Blamey. It was Slopey. Who's Slopey?
That's referring to the shoulders. Yeah, nothing ever sticks. Straight off. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm sure we've all come across these, and we don't want them because.
Yeah.
Don't want them. I think that's perhaps wrong. They might be in the wrong job. They can go and be brilliant elsewhere. But if you get an A player in your organisation, they will soon spot what sort of organisation they're in, and good A players won't tolerate this sort of thing. And this is again one of the reasons why you find that there is a churn of staff, but actually sometimes it's the best staff that are churning. And you're left with the ones that are just hanging on.
Yeah.
And that can slow down the growth, the development, the scalability of an organization. So we need to start that stop it very, very quickly.
Yeah, we've got a couple of things in the chat just popped up.
All right.
So, we've got Ashley here saying, I hear a lot of people speak about A players, B players, C players. Would we be able to expand a little bit on what these players actually are? And it's a very good question. Roy, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to do it?
So I mean, it's how you define it. I mean, the A players are the ones the contributors, the ones who not only have some. Look, we hire people quite often we hire people based on skills and experience. And that's all valid, but skills and experience quite often is past tense. It's what we call a lagging indicator. And it's like pensions and shares. Past performance is no guarantee of future performance. And then when we look at their general attitude, how they got results, their learning capabilities, and their winning habits. These are things that are future-looking traits. And what can happen is that we hire on their lagging indicators, but we fire on their leading indicators. So sometimes we're looking at the wrong end of the lead here. If we find people with a great attitude who are willing to learn, have demonstrated they're capable of learning, and can show you how they learn and how they grow into a role, it's then down to us as employers to define, well, actually, they don't have the skills and experience that we might need for this job. And no one ever has, because it's a brand new job. They've never worked there before. They don't have the skills and experiences, but if they've got the right attitudes, they've got the right learning capabilities, they know how to win, we can then decide, are we willing to give them internally, fill the gaps? And I like to look at A players as definitely having the right attitude and willing to move forward, willing to fail, to grow, to learn, and know how to do that. For me, that's a sign of a great A player. Skills and experience, that's always very useful. We love that, but it's not the main definition of an A player. And then we get the C player. The C players can sometimes look like they turn up, they've got 10 years worth of experience, but when you dig in, they've actually got the same year 10 times over. They haven't got a growth mindset. They start getting like one of our seven dwarfs, moany, sleepy, dopey, blamey. People who turn up in the interview and want to blame people for their current situation. And whereas sometimes that's relevant, to me, it's starting to be one of those red flags that I prefer not to have in my organisation, and people have to come to you with must-haves. They've got to pass the must-have test. What have they got to have in their armoury to get to the next stage? And then the nice-to-haves are some of the really great bits, that the extras that we differentiate staff on. Does that make sense? There was a warbling.
Yeah, that was nice. I'd sort of add in the middle, because there's obviously the big bit that we missed, which is the B players, which is probably the vast majority of the population. Now, I'm not saying that they're bad people. Of course, they're not bad people, and none of these people are actually bad intrinsically. I'm just saying about who are the people who are going to make the biggest difference to your organisation. Now, the B players is probably about the 60% of your overall workforce, or a typical workforce. I'm not saying necessarily yours, actually, but that B player part of the organization is usually what we call the movable middle. And they're movable because, have you ever heard the phrase, a rising tide raises all boats? So basically, if you've got fewer C players and more A players, then the B players will look at the A players and they'll say, that's how good I have to be to really excel in this organization, succeed around here. Whereas if you lose the A players and you've only got C players, then the B players look at the C players and go, actually, I only have to be that good in order to survive. And they kind of drift downwards. So it's kind of like, that's why we call the B players the movable middle. And again, not bad people, but maybe they don't have quite the growth mindset of an A player. They maybe don't have quite the self-esteem and the resilience and the ability to bounce back and learn really quickly and adaptively. And they certainly don't necessarily have the drive and the will to succeed that maybe some of the A players do.
Brilliant. John Sull, hello, John. It's been a while, mate. He said, to hire a great individual, you have to start with a great job. And that means the business has to understand the fundamental objectives of the role, why it's important, why it impacts the business, where the challenge is, and further development opportunities. John, you're an A player, mate. You know exactly what it's about. And I've known you for many years. You know exactly what it's about. And yeah, that's right. And as a recruiter yourself, you've probably seen this half-baked spec of what they need, and sometimes you probably despair. But isn't it great when you get a good spec and you know what you're looking for, so you can go out and hunt? And I firmly believe that recruiters are given a bad rep, not because they are bad, but often because the stuff that they are given is bloody awful. There we go. There's a PG-13. So thank you very much. It's great, John. They hit the payroll. Say again.
on what John said there, because I actually agree 100% with everything that John said there.
Yeah.
I would just add in that actually also it's not just about starting with a great job. It's also about starting with some great leaders and great managers, because you've all heard the cheesy phrase, but it's cheesy because it's true, which is that people don't leave a job, they leave a manager. And that is true, to a certain degree. And they also like to join people. And weak managers tend to recruit in their own image only even weaker. Whereas great managers recruit people who are at least as good as, if not better than they are. And I think that's a really important thing.
So I'm just conscious of time here. I'm looking at my big clock over there. Let's pretend. I mean, one of the things is a company has to know what their staff structure looks like in order to be successful and recruit to that, not to recruit to today. And as John mentioned earlier, you have to have a great job spec. You have to know what the must-haves are. You have to know what the nice-to-haves are. You've got to know some of the attitudes that they need and some of the ways that they win in order to fit the job. Now, let's pretend we've hired the A player. We've managed to convince them that this is an A-player company. They hit the payroll. They look around. How do we... The dynamic changes, doesn't it? The dynamic changes from when we're hiring, they want to impress you, to when they hit the payroll, why the hell should I stay in this company? And how do we start that off to look after the A players, to give them the right setup so that they know this is the place I want to do my best work? Matthew.
Wow. I mean, this is a huge question, and this is.
And we've got about 3 minutes to talk about it.
So I'm going to make it as quick as I can, and I'm probably going to offend at least 3 people when I talk about this. The 3 people who are probably listening right now, but so many companies, and I've been guilty of it myself, set themselves up to fail with this, where they expect, because they just hired somebody great, they can hit the payroll, they can hit the ground running, and they can be a self-starter. They've hired them to be a self-starter. Onboarding is a critical part of the overall hiring process. If you get to the point of 3 months, 6 months in, and you say, hey, you know what? I need to extend their probation period. That is a failure of management. That is a failure. Unfortunately, we've got to look in the ugly mirror here and say, actually, this is my fault. This is my fault. I haven't onboarded them properly. You need accountability. You need milestones. You need absolute clarity about what it takes to be successful around here and what it takes to be unsuccessful around here, without being too harsh about it, what it takes to get fired. Ultimately, not everybody is a good fit for everything, right? So this is where you're going to spend 3 months with a very clear plan of confirming that they were a good hire, and for them confirming that actually this is the place where they can succeed, where they can be held accountable, where they can do all of the things that they need to do in order to excel and to be better and to be challenged in a way that they're going to find really, really strong about. So it's all about their mindset, but confirming to them that you're that A-player organization.
Now, there's a lot going on there. We've got through a lot in 25 and odd minutes, and we've got to really pull this bit to a close. But we're running an interactive session. Matthew, tell us a little bit about it in 10 seconds, because we've got some other things to talk about.
It's going to be interactive. It's going to be 2 hours long. It's going to be free to attend. It's going to be limited to 8 people. If you want the details on it, the date is, Roy?
What was it? The 8th? The 8th. He says the 8th of March.
8th of March at 3 p.m. You just quote.
He's just checking.
Leave us a message in the comments down below. We'll get first come, first serve. You get to come along to it, and you will get value out of 2 hours of talking about this kind of stuff.
It's management blind spots. Yeah. So we've got some news before we finish. Oh, let me just put the link. Did we have a link to put in there? No, we didn't. Just comment in the chat, and we'll pick that up. Or you can email me, roy.johnson@sandler.com or mdh@sandler.com. In fact, mdh@sandler.com first, because he's running the thing. I'm just an innocent bystander. We've got some news before we go. We left it to the end, and this is the first time we're telling anybody outside of Sandler. We've been given an award. An award?
I know.
We're actually Sandler Training, Sales and Leadership Training Franchise of the Year.
In the UK, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, cannot believe it. And there's only Matthew. Well, I didn't see it coming. Matthew saw it coming. But we're really proud about that. That's my bit of news. And I think we've got 1 minute left. Let's have a look at some of the questions. So Danny, it's concerning that so many organisations don't have a strategy, purpose, mission and values. They don't know why they exist apart from revenue. If they don't know that, it's not surprising that recruiting can be such a challenge. Danny, bang on. A player, my friend. You should come along. Listen to some of these blind spots, and you're going to really recognise that. John Salt. Hire for day 365, not the start day mindset. Oh, I really like that. Again, it's amazing. The A players turn up on these things, don't they? John, absolutely bang on, mate.
You on that one. I will quote you the first time. After that, I'm gonna pretend it was mine because that's genius. I love that.
Yeah, hire for day 365, not start date mindset. That is absolutely brilliant. We are exactly half an hour. We have to stop. We're going to be doing something like this every week, 10:15 to 11:15. I promise we will get better at it. A little bit at least, but I appreciate you all coming on. John says congratulations. Thank you very much, John. It's been a few years coming, but we're looking forward to our year as franchisee of the year for Sandler Training. We're very pleased about that, and thank you very much for coming along. Thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate it. If you thought this was of value, to share it in your network. If you think there's some great value here, we've got so much more to talk about over the next few weeks. But thank you very much for coming along. Matthew, last words?
Yeah, other than that, just, we're looking forward to having these conversations on a weekly basis. Sometimes we'll talk about hiring, sometimes we'll talk about onboarding, sometimes we'll talk about sales. But it's all going to be beneficial, and it's all going to be about how to grow your business effectively, ethically, and doing so in a way that builds equal business stature and just, does things in the right way.
So that's Tuesday Chew on Tuesday 22222. There won't be another one of these for 1,000 years or something. The Daily Express said that. Who knows if it's true? Thank you very much for coming along. We're off. I'm going to end the stream right now. Cheers, John. And